Hello and welcome to the LG 27GL850 Q&A, where I go through many of the different questions asked since I started my reviews, as well as I'm going to show some different photos of the contrast at different brightness levels. Contrast, mind you, is the brightest white versus the blackest black. Eight-bit or 10-bit color best for gaming, frames per second, FPS. Is it worth forcing it to use 10-bit color? Do we take any form of performance hit for that? So 8-bit versus 10-bit should be very little to no performance hit at all. However, if you want to make sure that you're not losing any performance, run at 8-bit. This screen is not truly 10-bit, it's actually 8-bit plus FRC, which I believe is a lot less lag time on the part of processing power needed to display 16.7 million colors versus 1.07. So the main difference FRC does is you have two estimated colors. One might be a dark blue and one might be a light blue. Just to give an example, it'll flick back and forth to give the look of a, say, an in-between color that does not exist on this monitor. At least it's be perceived that way to your eyes. And this monitor can only run at 10-bit using a DisplayPort cable. And not only DisplayPort cable, you have to be running at 144 Hertz. As soon as you drop lower, you're stuck at 8-bit color. Nice video. I can't decide between the Acer Nitro VG270 and the LG 27GL850. I don't know if it's worth the extra $150. So if you're wondering about different panels, which one to get, it's kind of hard to recommend because maybe you really need those black levels. And people are asking what to use, but the problem is it absolute frame smoothness that matters to you, or is it something else? In my case, I don't mind happy mediums. I'd love to have the darkest dark and whitest white and lose a bit of performance as long as I'm not losing my colors. I can't stand color banding. So half of this comment is a repeat almost of other type of questions. But the part, do you think the GTX 1080 Ti can fully utilize this monitor? Fully utilizing this panel, it'll depend on what your video card is. If you're running a video card, graphics card, back at the 9 series of NVIDIA, or older, you're kind of out of luck for G-Sync compatible. If you're running a 10 series or the newer 20 series, you're in luck to use the adaptive zinc, which actually is your G-Sync certification with this monitor. You have to use DisplayPort or automatically you lose that adaptive zinc. The main difference, of course, is image tearing or no image tearing. If you're running at really high frame rates, you generally won't notice that issue so much. So if you have a good graphics card, you'll be quite well off. Let's say for 1440p, I'd honestly recommend a 1080 graphics card equivalent. 1080 Ti is really awesome for this. I'd recommend having at least 8 gigs of video RAM. If you're getting something that has only 6 gigs, you're putting performance on the table. You're going to have to lower your graphics settings in order to keep your frame rate up without stuttering, because some games like Resident Evil, the remastered, Resident Evil 2 remastered, it uses all my 8 gigs of RAM. So if I had 6 gigs, I'm going to throw away image quality. So 8 gigs is my minimum recommended to you if you're looking for true ultimate gaming performance and visuals. Does this monitor work great in dark rooms? In this comment, he is concerned about the low contrast ratio, as are many others. I made an example to show you how it looks in a dark room. Also, he mentions about another monitor, how it compares. I'll leave a link below to Hardware Unboxed. So contrast ratio is actually a hard thing to determine what works for you, because I've seen monitors with a contrast ratio of full 1000 to 1. The main disadvantage you'll have is when you're watching, say, movies in a dark scene. this screen's going to be a trade-off between having quite dark blacks or bright whites, because as you change your brightness of your monitor up and down, one is given for the other. Here's some examples for you right now. At 0% brightness, the dark is fairly dark, but the whites are also very faded. 25%, the whites are decently improved, the black slightly brightens up. 50% brightness, we're at a nice happy medium where you actually get some good white brightness and some glow through in the blacks. At 75% brightness, those blacks really start to get washed out. At 100% brightness, you have really nice whites, but the brightness in the black really fades that black out. You're not losing your black levels here. What is actually happening is the backlight is bleeding through the screen, and this can affect your viewing at nighttime. So if you're using this monitor at night, you want to make sure your brightness is turned down. How does adjusting anything inside the BIOS or UEFI of the motherboard affect the monitor or its settings? So in one of my videos, Getting the Ultra Experience, you'll notice I mentioned some of the BIOS. I'm planning to make a part 2 to this to actually show that your computer performance makes a great deal of your experience for your monitor. In fact, that applies to all monitors. If your computer is only running at 40 frames per second and you can get it running to 60 frames per second, yes, you'll notice a difference. It's going to be a much better experience. So your computer, whether you have XMP on versus off and you have high speed RAM, will make a huge difference, especially with Ryzen processors. The 3000 series allows a much higher speed RAM. You'll notice a huge difference in frames. However, if you're running an Intel processor, you'll notice a little difference. Running one stick of RAM, for example, you're throwing a great deal, maybe 20% of your performance right out the window. So have 2 sticks RAM, run in dual channel. Make sure RAM is in the right slot to run dual channel, not just stick in a old slot. I'm thinking of buying this monitor to plug it into my laptop that has a GTX 1070, while I still get a good resolution and also get over 100 frames per second. So as far as laptops go, usually your processor is a lower clocked processor, which means you're going to lose some performance versus a desktop processor, especially with video cards. This is one example of a 1070 video card will actually more likely perform more like a 1060. So if you're watching videos on benchmarking, your 1070 is not going to be 1070 on a laptop. It's generally going to be 1060 performance. And if you have 1080, it'll more likely be like 1070 and so on. Laptop processors and video cards generally are downclocked, meaning it's slower than your standard desktop type. So if you want the best performance, you generally want a desktop computer. However, not everyone has that choice or luxury of choosing that. One thing one person wondered is if this monitor will make their laptop faster. Well, it will not. Your laptop is as fast as it is. What it does is will smoother, so it just smooths out your movement. As long as your output display standard is new enough and your graphics built in are good enough, you can definitely get 1440p and up to 144 Hz. The example here is my sister's laptop connected to a TV. Do you recommend this monitor or the LG 27UK850 for Xbox One X? Thanks. Well, this other monitor, UK model, is only 60 Hz. So let's say you have a gaming platform, be it the PlayStation 4, the coming PlayStation 5, Xbox, whatever the case is. This monitor actually performs great at 60 Hz as well. So no matter what your system, this is going to be a good monitor if you're running at only 100 Hz or even 120. Luckily, this particular monitor, you don't have to worry. Some of the gaming monitors that run at 144 Hz are only good at 144 Hz and 120 Hz. And as soon as you put them down, you're just not getting the proper performance, especially cheaper monitors. What would I get if I get any monitor I wanted? I'd like a VA panel type ultra wide at a decent resolution. The other thing I want to make sure is it has proper contrast. You can get VPA panels that are lacking, but one with a true 3001 contrast ratio that doesn't have smearing an image, because I had a BenQ XR3201. The one problem is its resolution was too low considering its large size. It was a 1080p resolution on a 32-inch, and that's just not acceptable. 1440p would have been actually just fine. 144 hertz. It didn't have adaptive zinc, G-Sync, none of that, but that was fine itself, especially if it was running at decent frame rates. The screen does display 1080p wonderfully, and you can game on it 1080p, not a problem. So that's one plus here. So my perfect screen is a VA panel, 1440p if it was 32-inch, but I probably want to get a 29-inch ultra wide in my personal case, just because I don't have the desk space. And 8-bit color minimum, true 8-bit minimum, 8-bit plus FRC bonus. 10-bit, hey, I'd take that too as well. My next concern, of course, is that black level, to make sure there's no smearing, that it has no color banding, and if it performs well. Quantum dots. A well-detailed quantum dot VA panel. That allows for what they call local dimming. That means where one part has a little small section, has the backlighting on, and the other part is off, so it's black. You get no backlighting, no light bleed, only light going through where it's brighter. And that gets quite amazing. And having, say, HDR certified around 1,000, actually 600 would actually be quite nice itself. But your power usage goes up when you have higher HDR, so it's kind of a fine balance. But HDR 600 at least, yeah, I think we're talking there. So this concludes the Q&A for the 27GL850. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day.
This is not BIOS, tech and hardware.